Hi everybody, today we're talking about character deaths. You know, death is ever present. I'm just gonna drink some sangria. I don't know why we have this. A lot of you commented and gave a lot of wonderful, interesting comments that I have yet to read. Oh, that's sweet. That's what we're doing right now. We got 181 comments on YouTube, but I'm not gonna talk about all of them because that would be a 3-hour video, but let's get into this. It hurts more when a character is a traitor / betrays someone than if they die. Yeah, this is correct. When they die, there's sort of a closure there a little bit, at least in fiction, not in real life. Death in real life, there's not really rarely closure. Wow, that got really dark. Hot take, Joshua is actually the main character all along, and the job of Donald Green and Brian Sanders is to help Jake realize that. This is why he makes a miraculous escape at the climax of the 18th novel and takes his revenge on his true villain, Jake, by taking the kids and Deborah away. Alright, Donald Green would never do that to me. Okay? When a character dies off-screen / off-page, it's expected that they don't really die. Would it be interesting to try it and go against that norm once in a while? That would be... that would actually be pretty interesting. Just like a really obvious setup for a character not actually dying. They're just like, oh yeah, this person died off-screen totally. And then they just do, and the whole time you watch the movie, you're just like, oh, they're gonna come back at a certain point. And then the movie ends and you're just like, oh, I guess they just died. When a character dies, there needs to be time for other characters to grieve. Sometimes the reactions are more impactful and emotional than the actual death. But if the author just brings them back, don't have hundreds of pages spent grieving. That's very true. I can't help thinking, but to think of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. I think those of you who have seen it will know what I mean. And to me, what makes a character dying in a story so impactful, it's not that they are gone. I mean, obviously that is major. We're losing that character, you know, from the story. Whatever they could have done is gone, but it leaves a hole for all of the dynamics, and it creates a title shift for how all the characters are going to deal with this. It's, you know, death. The reason why it has to be used sparingly in storytelling is because it's huge, it's monumental, and it's going to change characters. It should change characters, and some of them forever. I really enjoy when an author effectively kills a character in a way that surprises and crushes the reader. Sue me. Yeah. I'm a bit annoyed with how hung up a lot of people seem to be on the idea that for any story to be considered to have stakes, characters have to die constantly, and also that all the bad guys automatically deserve to die. I feel like Game of Thrones broke a lot of brains. You know, Game of Thrones comes up so much, I feel like, when talking about character deaths, because I don't think any show or series has surprised people and brought new things to character deaths. And mainly it's just about main character deaths, I think. We're used to side characters dying. In fact, some characters, we expect them to die. And yeah, all bad guys don't automatically deserve to die. I mean, I guess deserve is kind of a weird word. I just think that it's expected for the bad guys to die, when honestly there's like way worse things. Like if you want to punish the bad guy, I think there's way worse things than death for the villain to go through. I'm going to use this comment to kind of encompass the whole resurrection theme here. If a character is dead, let them stay dead. Don't bring them back to life, for God's sake. I feel like this should almost always be the case. If you do, you have to have like rules established about character resurrections. If you do it once, you really can't do it again. It just cheapens it. And you'll see some shows, that have just been going on for too long where they just have to start resorting to these kinds of things. It gets tiresome. The Contradictorian says, don't foreshadow it all the time. Surprise me. Make it sudden, so that it hurts, and show me the character's dreams and plans before, so that I know what I'm losing. And this kind of opens up this idea of foreshadowing to me. Like, sometimes foreshadowing, you don't need it. You know, I feel like we really praise foreshadowing as like, it's a great device, and especially when you're rereading a series, it can be really fun. But things like a character's death, it can work a lot better when it just happens. Joshua's death was stripped of meaning when the author brought him back to life after he fell off the Grand Canyon. I like when characters see or enter alternate realities and get all messed up that the people they know are dead there. Yeah, absolutely. We were watching Jumanji recently, the original Jumanji, and because I love that movie. Spoilers for Jumanji. I'm sorry if you haven't seen Jumanji, but when Robin Williams comes back, you know, to the 1990s and finds out that his parents are dead. It's like, that's such a sad scene, and it's kind of like a similar thing. The resurrection trope is actually fine, especially in war epics. I think we should get more main characters getting irreversibly hurt than dead. That is a lot more painful to read. Well, I see what you mean about the irreversibly hurt, and that can be super effective also. You know, I think a lot of writers don't use that as much as death, maybe because it's harder to write about also. But yeah, like an injury, a major injury can totally change a story. But I still don't think the resurrection trope is fine. It shouldn't be a trope. It should be like super, super rare. I honestly just enjoy my favorite characters dying. I can't help it. It's how I'm made. Who made you? Most of the time, killing a character is the worst way to conclude an arc, and especially if the series goes on, it ends up removing a great dynamic audiences loved. I do generally think that killing a character at the end of their arc is pretty lame, because you can get to the end of an arc and have a new arc, or you can get to the end of an arc and then just be there, you know? I think it gives this sense of resolution to death that I don't think should be there, you know? When death comes in a story, I think it should be messy and leave a lot of open ends, but a lot of times you'll see a character die in a show or a series, or you read about a character dying and they've gotten to the end of their story, so it seems like okay that they're dying. Like Darth Vader, you know, he gets to the end of his character arc, so it's like, it's fine. You know, he became good, you know, so it's fine that he dies. I don't love that. You know, it can work, and it works in Star Wars, but I think that's a pretty cheap thing to do. I don't like when a character dies and then an alternate version of them is brought in. It takes away the original's life and worth and mutes the grieving process, and the thought that somebody can be replaced so easily really galls me. This reminds me of a lot of CW shows. Yeah, there's some weird implications there, so I agree there. Personally, I believe that a series, no matter how good it is ultimately a failure if all the characters are still alive by the end. They must all die. And they said it was not a joke. If all the characters aren't dead by the end, have you really told a full story? I mean, you gotta follow them from cradle to grave. Some characters wouldn't be as loved or appreciated if they didn't die. This is so true. For some characters, dying is really the saving grace of their character arc. It can really make or break a character if they die at the right time, you know? They just did something heroic. They're terrible their whole lives, but they do something heroic and then they die, and it's like, oh yeah, they ended on a high note, so that's good. But if if they stayed alive for like 24 hours longer and they just continued to be shitty, then it'd be like, yeah, I don't know if he was really good. My biggest pet peeve is when something so fatally violent damaging occurs, followed by he or she was dead. Suddenly, a cannonball hit Bob directly in the face, tearing his entire head asunder, as his decapitated likeness fell upon the floor with a grotesque thud, splaying red across the once pristine hardwood. He was dead. Like, yeah, no shit, Bob is dead. If I cry at a character death, that means you're the best author of all time. Yeah, I don't cry at character deaths all that. Never mind, I do. Sleep, character dying. Woke, fate worse than death. Bespoke, character death by completely derailing their characterization from what it was. If you really want to kill a character in the hearts of a reader, just destroy their characterization and just make them the worst character ever, because they will forget about that character. They will be dead in their hearts even if they live on the page. Resurrection erases the meaning of a character's sacrifice is an absolutely wild take, and I see it so often. A resurrection doesn't erase the pages where a character dies, it just contextualizes the character's arc in a new light, like every event in every story. I see where this is coming from, because you can't just discount all resurrection. If the story fundamentally changes while the character is dead, and then when they're resurrected, it changes again, yeah, that can be great. What I don't like is a kind of false change or a false sense of change that is immediately corrected, or all these new problems occur because this character is gone, and then all of a sudden the character comes back and it's all fixed. No, I think it should be, you know, the stakes are different now because of however this character came back. It's creating new problems. It's a lot more interesting for a character to live than to die. I mean, yeah, because the character's going on, death is blah, 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 yeah. I think every character should be killed, no survivors. From the tiniest baby to the old wise wizard, have no mercy. No more characters, they are all dead. why doesn't this have more likes? This is, I agree wholeheartedly. I don't have anything to say at the moment, just wanted to comment. Okay, bye. That's okay. I'm gonna keep your comment on screen and make everybody stare at it for 50 seconds. Overly Average Ben says, we need more narrator deaths. George R. R. Martin is the only one brave enough to do it and leave A Song of Ice and Fire unfinished. There's this Marty Robbins song that I love where the singer of the song dies at the end of the song and is singing about how they're dying. I forget which one it's called. I think might be El Paso. The first 3 Stormlight books don't have enough deaths relative to the stakes and risk present. A lot of the deaths mentioned are the ones that happened in the past. I agree. Only one had really significant impact on me, because the rest, it felt like these were characters that were basically cannon fodder. Another one, Brandon Sanderson is scared to kill his main characters. I wouldn't say he's scared. I just don't think it necessarily fits his type of universe and the tone that he goes for in his world. Please don't call authors cowardly or too attached just because they haven't killed any main characters. A perfectly amazing high-stakes story can be written without murdering beloved characters. Gosh darn it. Yeah, I totally agree. You know, you don't have to kill your characters in order to have good stakes in a story. There's so many other ways to do that. I feel like, as evidenced in a lot of these comments, people love seeing characters live and deal with the consequences of the real world, and a lot of times death is kind of an easy way to solve a character arc. I've thought about it sometimes in my writing where I go, do I really need my character to die here, or do I just don't really want to think about what's going to happen next for them, or is the story just becomes more complicated if they're still around and I'm just doing it because I don't want to deal with the complications and I just want them to have a nice, clean resolution. And I go, oh yeah, I mean, if I'm just using death for a clean resolution, then that's not good enough reason for it. It's got to really serve the story in a bigger way. Death does not equal redemption. Death is a cheap way to avoid having a character face the consequences of their actions by having them make the noble sacrifice. Exactly. This is exactly what I've been saying. I want to see more villains actually having to put in the work to atone for the wrongs they committed. I'm looking at you, Star Wars. And I love Star Wars, but I'm looking at you, Star Wars. To improve verisimilitude, that's a word, I want your book to actually kill me, the reader, too. Yeah. Wouldn't that be real immersive? Man, if you weren't in the middle of reading it, I'd have some things to say, LOL, but oh well. Don't. If any of these characters in the Wheel of Time die, I don't know what I'll do. PSA to all the fantasy mentor figures to ditch the kid they're training because y'all gonna bite it. Yeah. Mentor them, give them the advice they need, and never talk to them again. That's how it should be with high school teachers. That's how it should be with anybody, for any teacher, okay? My opinion, man-carrying things should not survive his piece on character deaths. I resent that. A dramatic sacrificial death is not a redemption arc. It's a cheap cop-out and lazy writing. Yes, I hate that kind of sacrificial death, especially when it's a character that they've done horrible things and they just do one token thing to be remembered as great. What about their whole lifetime of doing horrible shit? Bringing back dead characters to life is fine and doesn't ruin stakes or consequences. I'm not even going to finish reading that comment because that's wrong. Everyone else has convinced me at this point that it's wrong. Gorb says, if every single character doesn't die by the end of the book, it isn't grimdark enough and is probably YA trash. Are you really a writer if you don't kill all of your characters? Especially all at once. So the majority of the comments are resurrection bad, killing characters suddenly is pointless, but also we should be killing characters suddenly more often. Let's see what Twitter has to say. Man carrying depression. Oh, Cam Wolf, this is good. Not enough character deaths involve the characters freaking out that they're dying. It's always heroic and beautiful instead of dripping snot, crying, and screaming. Every time I watch a character death these days, I think about how in real life, when a person dies, usually they release, you know what I'm talking. They release themselves, so it's not a pleasant smell. Seems like it'd be very uncommon for someone to be very composed in a situation like that. There's no body, the person's not dead. Simple as that. True. David says, you should kill off all the characters in the first chapter. Everyone knows real literature is just a collection of nature descriptions and vibes. That's actually, I would read that. Killing of parents or parent figures or mentor is just too common now that it loses the feel. Yeah, it's really just expected. I feel like you really can't kill a mentor figure like you used to. You know, you can't have that kind of fun anymore. Resurrection trope done wrong. Creator announcing Joshua's death when they very well knew he was alive and well. I didn't know he was... come on, Larry, don't get me mad like that. Josh Neller says, every character death scene is impactful enough, but the most heartbreaking is when you threaten your character. That's even worse than death. The main character losing a dear loved one, the said main character losing your memory or personality. Absolutely, there are things worse than death in fiction, and horrible stuff that can happen to your characters besides death. So why put them through death if you're just going to resurrect them? Put them through something worse, and then you don't have to do the resurrection trope. You know, problem solved if you're a writer. Every series should end with the main characters dying to prevent garbage, like Rugrats All Grown Up. I feel like there are so many examples you could do of that, but you choose Rugrats All Grown Up. I will always care more about a character's death because they mattered to me than because they mattered to other characters. Even when taking empathy into account, they need to be feel earned, at least to me. I agree on this because a lot of times a writer or they don't have time to really build up a side character who dies. So you'll hear other characters talk about, oh wow, they're this great person and they did this for me and I saw them do this. Oh, they're a good person. Doesn't really matter because you as a reader have to feel some kind of connection to them, and usually you have to see their actions on the page. You can't just really hear what other people are saying about them. You got to really see what they're doing and how they interact in the world. Levi Johnson, the comic relief must die. It's the only way to give the story stakes. You know what? There are a lot of stories where I would like the comic relief to have died. I feel like that's actually weirdly good advice. That'd be so, like, instead of killing the wise old wizard mentor, kill the jester. I'm looking at you, Wit. You know, this has really opened my eyes. I feel like I have absorbed the opinions of millions. So if I ever write another story again, I will either make sure all of the characters are alive constantly and no one dies, or I will make sure all of the characters die within the first 15 pages. This has been a lot. Thank you to everyone who submitted. I read all of your comments and cackled. My brain is going to explode. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one, everybody, and I'll see you all parasocially in the future. Bye-bye.